Wicked. Allie, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me.
Wicked. So, for everyone watching, just so you know, my interaction first time today with Allie was it was rather eventful. Do you want to tell them from your perspective?
Well, I get a text message saying what lot to park in and that I should be fine and not get a ticket there, and to park beside Glenn's car. And I messaged him as to whether or not it was the car with the ticket on it. And so that was an interesting encounter.
It was super embarrassing on my part.
Needless to say, I didn't buy a ticket.
I ran real fast once I read that. That was uncomfortable. So, anyways, yeah. Well, so you just came from work, right?
Yes.
Yeah, wicked. So you just finished coaching gymnastics.
Yes.
Right? So, but what were you said during the summer it's less, but you start off your day teaching at Cambrian.
Yeah.
And then you went from that to coaching gymnastics, and then thankfully here on the podcast, so I appreciate that. But how do you manage your time? Specifically, when do you breathe and stuff? When do you eat? How do you manage your hobbies, relationships, stuff like that?
It really just comes down to being very disciplined, I think. Organization is a personal thing. Some people are very organized, other people aren't. Most of my life is very organized. There's obviously things that aren't, and things start to slack, but I think if you're disciplined enough to want something, then you'll work for it, right? And I currently have 4 jobs. Between I have 2 at Cambrian, so I have 2 there, and then I coach gymnastics and I tutor as well. So between that, it is a lot of time management, and it's a lot of really long days. But I mean, it just comes down to, I really like all of them, and
right. Probably helps.
Exactly, right? And I fully have the range to let one of them go if I want to, or a few of them go, but I really just don't want to. I really enjoy what I do, and it's not work at that point. So those long days, yes, I'm tired at the end of them, but they really don't feel that crazy at some point. It sounds crazier than it is. But I mean, really, I enjoy doing it, so it just comes down to whether or not you're disciplined enough to stick to a schedule.
Right. Yeah, nice. So what 2 jobs do you do at Cambridge?
I teach English there, and then I also do academic advising.
Nice.
So it's guidance counseling.
Okay. So with the teach stuff, are you also French immersion?
I did French immersion through high school.
Okay, right.
I took French in university.
Okay.
I only teach English at Cambrian. I've coached a little bit in French. I don't use it as much as I want to. But Cambrian is an English college.
Okay.
So yeah, I only teach English and grammar and structure there.
Nice. You teach it to college students?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 17 plus. I have a lot of international students that I work with as well.
Cool.
Yeah, because there's a big demographic mainly from India, but there's quite a few other locations that we have students from.
Nice.
So I have this past semester I had a class of 30 and I had 3 domestic students. So the rest of them were international. So you learn really
That's pretty
quickly.
cool.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about different cultures. You learn, what strategies work. Obviously their schooling system was a lot different than we have in Canada. So you kind of have to, learn pretty quickly and adjust to what works for them. So
would you say then you have a standard set of strategies that you work and you just apply it differently to each student?
Yeah, I mean, as a teacher, you're always going to have things you need to cover, and different, I guess, objectives that you want to follow and whatnot, but you kind of branch out depending on what works. You'll have classes that you're teaching the same lesson and one way of teaching it's going to work, and then you try the same thing and it doesn't work for the next class, right? So it just depends on how you can kind of adjust to that, I guess.
Sure. Can you give me an example of a specific strategy you use? I don't know if it's learning style or how you'd approach certain students. I'm curious
in
about
terms of teaching, or
yeah.
So I mean, I taught students in the trades area, and I also taught students in the business area in the same semester. So it was the same course, same semester. But because of the nature of trades, they're very hands-on,
right?
So we did a lot of like class discussions and a lot of, you know, workshops and like peer editing and things like that, and that seemed to work really well for those students. But then taking it over to like the students that are in business, they're very much they really like to work independently, so they could sit through a lecture and then just like talk to the person beside them rather than having a whole discussion about it. So it was the same lesson, just two different approaches in that sense, right? Where you kind of have to adjust to the students and how they, you know, learn best essentially.
Right. So with all the tradespeople, you find it's best like, say like kinesthetic style learning and stuff, or more doing to understand.
Exactly. And I mean, it doesn't always like fall into that. Even you know, there are students that are maybe in trades but can learn through lecture based. But I find a lot of it had to be very hands-on. You know, workshops and different ways to get them interacting with the lessons. We did like surveys, so they had to create their own surveys and then go around the classroom and like take those surveys to their classmates and stuff. Whereas the students that are used to working very much on their own or behind desks, things like that, so like IT, anything like that where they have to do things alone, they were fine learning just through lectures, right? So it was the same lesson essentially, but different approaches. So I learned a lot, like especially that 1 year when I had both in the same semester, because you learn pretty quickly that, you know, the same approach doesn't work for all students in all areas. And that was actually my first year teaching at the college, which was interesting. So, you know, I'm not only new from Teachers College, but also learning really quickly on kind of what strategies work, and they're adults, right? They're not kids. You can't boss them around in a sense.
True. You can't just manipulate them so easily.
And tell them, you know, what they need to do. They have to be able to figure it out for themselves.
It's kind of just like less like directing, more like guiding.
Exactly.
Cool. How did that job take place? Because you mentioned on the walk into the studio about you said you're doing your master's, which we'll get to that, don't worry. So you're doing your master's so that you can teach in colleges. Is that so you can teach full-time? Oh, in universities. Okay, so colleges you can just...
interesting. So to teach in the college, I didn't need a Bachelor of Education. It didn't ask for it. They want a lot of field experience.
So
having my Bachelor of Education meant that I had 5 years of teaching experience already.
Oh, that's how they do it? They kind of like match it?
So taking, I did my Teachers College at Laurentian actually, and so we did placements from second year on, and so I already had that experience, but it wasn't, you know, I hadn't been working with the school board for 10 years or whatever. But I did have a Bachelor of Education when I graduated. And so when I applied for Cambrian, I really just applied for like the experience of getting an interview with a college stream. I honestly didn't think anything of, you know, having a chance because I knew who I was up against and the seniority that people had and whatever. But I mean, I also had a lot of teaching experience, and so when we had to do a mock like teaching lesson when we did the interview. So I had to come up with a lesson and teach the interviewees basically, or the interviewers. And so I think having the experience of being in the classroom from, you know, day one of university was really, or it helped me get that position. So it didn't ask for a Bachelor of Education, but having it definitely helped, and I think got me that position. But any universities, for the most part, you need a master's, or most of them ask for a doctorate, which you can't get without the master's. So I'm essentially doing that to, you know, have the opportunity to teach in a university, or even, you know, essentially just get the knowledge that will teach me, right? And having that master's under my belt won't hurt anything.
No, not at all.
And so I've really learned a lot in that. But even if, you know, nothing comes of it, or I don't end up at a university, it's still something that I had wanted to do for a while, and I finally got the opportunity to. So
that's pretty cool. Do you foresee yourself taking the next step and like getting your PhD?
The program that I'm taking through Western, there's like an option. So once I graduate from the master's, they have a 3-year doctor of education
Nice.
that I'd definitely be interested in. It's just, it comes down to money and time as well, right? So,
It always comes down to money and time.
So I can make that work. I definitely would love to have a doctorate, hopefully in the near future. Yeah, but so that's part of the reason I chose Western too, was because they had that program that carried into it.
Right, just creates that opportunity for you.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
really sweet. And that's online course you're taking?
Yes, it's all through online, yeah. Which again goes to the discipline, right? Where a lot of people can't learn online.
Super difficult.
Yes.
It's like, oh, discussion board. No thanks.
Yeah, well that's
Scratch that
exactly
5%.
what it is,
Yeah,
right? And
true.
it's come down to it where, you know, they upload the assignments or whatever you need to do, and you have to have them in for a certain date. There's nobody, you know, chasing you for them. It's not like being in class where you can ask the professor questions and you get an answer right away, right? You have to rely on email if you have questions, or other classmates that are online and things, right? So it is definitely not for everybody to learn online. I haven't had an issue with it, but it's one of those, like, you need to be very disciplined to do.
So speaking of which, so do you then just manage your time? Like, okay, you block off like a chunk of time once or twice a week to do the online stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, so like if I know I have an assignment coming up or whatever, like I finished one of my assignments yesterday.
Right.
I just like,
congrats.
You know, thanks. I have another one due on Wednesday, so that'll be what I'm doing when I get home. But working on, you know, assignments as soon as you find the time, like it's essentially, it came down to my free time or spare time is doing other things that need to get done. Right? So I don't, you know, spend a lot of time like watching TV or whatever. If I do, I'm probably on the computer
at the same
time, right?
Like you have Grey's Anatomy playing while you're doing your research. Been there.
Yeah.
Been there.
So that's kind of what it comes down to, is my free time is not the same as what other people consider free
You don't
time.
just get 6 hours to lie down.
No,
it's
exactly.
Like, I wish. That'd be fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. How do you stay motivated through all of that? Because some people are listening or watching are probably like, how does she do that? Like, it's like, oh, I'm struggling with just this. It's like, I got double that, so.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to self-discipline, really. Having been a gymnast basically my whole life, it does, you know, it's a lot about discipline and, you know, essentially going through what needs to get done and how you're going to get it accomplished. And that's always been, you know, ingrained in me from day one in the sport of, if you really have a goal, you have to work for it, right? And if you don't work for it, then you're back at square one. So I think just the motivation aspect comes from knowing what my end goal is, and knowing what needs to happen to get there. I've been lucky enough to, you know, have really good grades, and even through masters and stuff, I've kept those grades. So, but that, again, I was, you know, I knew that I didn't want them to drop, and so I did everything that I could to keep them where they were. Yeah, whereas some people, again, like you said, are, if I can get it done, then I'm in the clear, right? But that's not how I think, and that's never been how I think.
Right, it's like you want them done well.
Exactly.
Right, there's no just,
and
we're finished.
Exactly, and even having like the education perspective, I know what I expect from my students, so I don't know why I would give anything less.
Right, it's that almost that leading by example.
Yeah.
To your, like, inside, that's like a leading by example.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So I'm gonna have a fun question for you now, because I was thinking about it. Like, trampoline, like gymnastics. Okay. Question for you: can you, yes or no, backflip?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna cut to a video in the edits of Ali backflipping for us. So that was pretty cool, eh? Wicked. So, awesome. Sweet. So that's a hard yes.
Yes, I can. I can
Sick.
show you some. I'll take some videos when I'm at work tomorrow for you.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? I'm just gonna go to work, serve some stuff, write some stuff down. I'm gonna go backflip.
I do the aerial silks too. I can send you some.
Yeah, please.
Of those.
Oh, it's gonna be sick.
Lots of bruises though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Can you do you teach people like how to backflip, like progression? Because that's like a life goal of mine, and I want to learn.
Your brother actually has come into Gym Zone, and I have taught him how to flip.
Like how to front flip,
how to front flip.
Front flip?
I don't
Okay,
remember
nice.
if he did backflips, but I will teach him that too if he wants to learn.
Right. Sick.
Yeah.
Shout out Neil.
Yeah, that's actually like the first place. I didn't even realize that he was your brother actually, but or Rob's son even.
Yeah.
But
It's a weird.
yeah, family connection. But yes, I have taught him, and there's lots of different progressions of like
Nice.
how to learn how to flip, and that's essentially what we go through when we
Okay.
coach, right? So.
How do you coach the fear of? Because I can backflip on a trampoline because I'm like okay, whatever. I'm convinced I can get high enough. But how do you coach that initial like fear of going backwards? Because anyone can go forwards. It feels like I don't know.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
feels safer going forward.
it's a lot of. It depends on the level, and you know whether it's for fun or for part of the sport, right?
Right.
But it comes down to whether or not you're going to go. If you have mental blocks, then there's nothing anybody else can do.
Right, you
You
just
have to
gotta
get through it. Yeah.
send it.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
I know with our athletes
Okay.
too, like we faced that quite a few times, and it comes down to like we'll have them journal or we'll have them, you know, find things that maybe thinking about the skill is what's making them anxious. So we'll have them like listening to music before they go or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, where it kind of takes their mind off of it, right? But
So you teach people how to backflip, and I'm gonna learn.
sounds good.
So I just like go in for like a private lesson, or would I like? Go
Yeah, we
like,
have adult
okay.
drop-in too, though. That's probably that's also the best route that we recommend for the most
Okay.
part, because you can just like you have free reign of the whole equipment.
Nice.
But you come in, there's like only adults in the gym at that point.
Sweet.
The coaches are there just kind of supervising, but we'll try
Makes
to help
sense,
who we
yeah.
can. And give you like different drills to do and stuff,
Cool.
and that usually,
Nice.
yeah. I mean, it depends. People learn really quickly, and other people don't.
I'm so
but,
excited.
yeah,
by it. Oh.
I can help teach you how to flip.
So excited because I tried like, excuse me, I watched a couple of YouTube videos like a year ago when I was living in Ottawa. And we had this giant park across the street, so I was like, oh man, I could put like 3 soccer fields wide and then a baseball down in like kids' little park enclosed in a bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if I go there, like you go backwards, put your foot down or like your hand down. You have to like practice bridging back. And I was like trying these like little progressions, right? It's a YouTube video,
Yeah.
so it's not as professional, but it's somewhere to start. And so I was like, oh, I can do this, cool. And then I could front handspring. I can't the back part
Back
other than the
handspring.
trampoline.
Yeah.
It gets me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
front skills are actually blind landing, so even though they're easier to start because you can see where you're going, landing is actually a blind landing, which people like once you do the skill you kind of understand it. But
Yeah.
when you're coming out of a front flip, you don't know where your feet are landing, which is why a lot of people will over rotate.
Mhm.
Whereas a back flip, you can actually see your landing. You don't know where you are taking off, right?
Right.
Which is why we try to train like head position and things.
Okay.
But it's not a blind landing. So
Right.
like you'll see a lot of those skills are easier to pick up once you start doing them. Like a standing
Okay.
back flip is easier than a standing front flip. Just because front you're going downwards and back you're actually lifting your body if you can do it properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think for sure I'm athletic enough. I'm trying not to sound arrogant about it, but no, I definitely feel I'm like athletic enough skill-wise to manage the
Yeah,
jump
for sure.
and stuff.
No,
and
there's,
send.
yeah, come to drop in and we'll definitely like whether it's me or some of the other coaches, like we'll run you through some of the
Okay.
progressions and we'll get you back
This is gonna
flipping.
happen. Because trampoline, it's like, oh, let's just go. But
Yeah.
it's that like fear of I just don't want to snap my neck.
No, and
That's
there's,
literally
of
the
course,
fear,
right? I
that's
can
it,
understand
right.
that. Yeah, so there's all these progressions that we do in teaching how to fall and things like that. So
I'm so excited.
and I'd rather people come to gymnastics places to learn these things
Right.
anyway, rather
Yeah.
than doing things on their own.
Right, because then especially
So-
if something happens.
Yeah, and we know
Like, you
how
guys
to.
know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. Right,
Right.
like how to essentially train you into doing that skill properly.
Right.
Right. So.
Sick. I'm excited. Dude. So when do these adult drop-ins happen?
In the summer, right now, it's
Mhm.
Wednesday from 7 to 8. And then during the year, I'm not sure what the day is, but I can get back to you because it
Okay.
changes
Yeah, please.
during
We'll
the
get
year.
in touch about that.
I think it's like Mondays 8:30 to 9:30.
Okay.
That's
we
what
can
it
do
was
that.
last year.
Sweet.
Yeah, so it's a little bit later, but it's only adults in the gym. It's supervised by the coaches that are there, and then we can walk around and kind of help you with
So
what
excited.
you need.
Because I can just picture me like in front of my opponent or next to my opponent at a jiu-jitsu tournament, and like they're waiting here, I'm waiting here, the timetable's here, the mat's here. I look over at them, drop a backflip, walk out the mat, bow to him, good luck. Like, oh, that'd be so sick.
So you're gonna come in on Wednesday then, right?
This Wednesday?
Yeah, this Wednesday.
Yeah,
I'll be there.
I'll try if I get back from the island soon enough, because I'm going like a day trip with one of my buddies.
Oh, cool.
So I'm like trying to get that done, but then I would typically train that night. That's why I was like, but that's good to know.
During the year it's on Mondays.
Okay.
I believe it was last year, so I can get back to you, but it's probably the same.
Okay, so that's for summer then.
Yes, that's summer. So it'll change in September.
Nice. This is my favorite podcast so far. This is awesome.
Yes,
so excited. Dude, so how did your gymnastics coaching career then get started?
I trained in Toronto.
Okay.
Georgetown, which is where I grew up. I started coaching, I think I was about 11. So I've been coaching for a decade and a half now, which sounds crazy. Yeah, so my entire life essentially has revolved around the sport. I started gymnastics when I was 3. And then from there, like I was already in the gym and my coach had me working with him to coach, and then from there I was given like my own class and it just kind of kept going. And the good thing with that is like there's all these certifications that you need to get to have different levels of coaching.
Right.
And so I got, essentially I got them started when I was in my old club, and then wherever you go, they stick with you, right? So as long as you're in Toronto, like Ontario, I got them all in Ontario. So they were valid anywhere in Ontario.
Nice.
So I could coach wherever I wanted. So when I moved to Sudbury, I had those under my belt, and I essentially just, was coaching high school gymnastics, and then I got on with Gym Zone as well. And I coached Sudbury Laurels, which is the competitive side too. Nice. So from there, it's just kind of, I like that once you have them, as long as you stick with the sport and stuff, they can essentially carry with you anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it got started from my old club, but I've definitely grown and learned a lot from the club that I'm at now.
Sweet.
And it's something that I really don't see myself stopping anytime soon. Mm-hmm. Obviously, life gets in the way sometimes, but I think I'd always be involved in the sport in some way. So
nice. You're so far in it now, might as well. Nice.
Yeah.
So on that one then, you had an athlete medal at Canadian Championships, correct?
Yes, I did.
So when I was reading about that, my biggest curiosity that came up was what's the process like to prepare the athlete for that level of competition? This I'm really intrigued about, because it's a little like they get there, but then it's like, all right, everyone's that good. Yeah.
So I mean, it does come down a lot to, like I said, the athlete's mental capacity. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can be a national athlete, even if you have the talent to, right? It doesn't mean that you have the mental strength to do that, right? And I was lucky enough that I have an athlete that, could essentially, go through all of that without anxiety and things. I'm sure he was really nervous.
Oh, for sure.
But we didn't really have a lot of not wanting to be there or, nerves in terms of I can't do this or I'm not good enough. There was none of that, which, I mean, you go in expecting that, right? Because like you said, you see everybody who's just that good. Mm-hmm. But I mean, as long as you have the discipline and you know that you're prepared, that's half the battle right there is knowing that you've worked for this. And he went in confident, and we, you have goals in place. He managed to obviously exceed those goals. But having those goals and making sure that he knew he was prepared for that was half the battle, right? Where as much as I can tell him he can,
you can do
it. You got it, exactly.
Yeah, he's got to believe it.
He has to believe it, and
true.
I think we had a rough season when we had some injuries. Just from growth spurts and stuff, right? So it was tough.
That age.
Exactly, it was tough. So he got through a lot. He worked really hard to get back, and he came back stronger than ever, and definitely exceeded, I think, his own expectations even. And he ended up getting third at Canadian Championships, and then he competed for Team Ontario as well and got first.
Nice.
So so that was, it was a lot, it was very successful, and I think a lot more of an experience, or a lot better of an experience than he even thought, right? Because he was expecting to learn lots, but I don't know if he thought it would be, that exciting, and I know he was nervous going in, but he was able to push through it, and
Right.
you know, so that was really, really exciting.
That's pretty cool. So then, do you guys so then no mental coaching is fine. It's already he's already got it. But in terms of do you talk over with them? Do you sit down at the beginning of it and go say you got 3 months to go, be like, hey man, during these 3 months we're gonna go the first month. It's gonna be conditioning for it, then the next or technique, and then the next month is gonna be conditioning, and then next week it's just gonna be sharpening it.
Yeah, so there's a whole plan in place, right? So when you get athletes, especially of that caliber,
Right.
you have those yearly training plans. So we kind of knew where we wanted him to be, at certain points in the year. Unfortunately, that kind of got backtracked a little bit just based on how he could train. So then you just you go back and reevaluate, right? I've also had athletes that did have mental blocks a lot of the year, and we had to, essentially work through those too. So for this particular athlete, he didn't need that kind of mental coaching essentially, but I have had a lot that did, right? And so it just depends on the athlete themselves and what they can push through. So, we sit down and we discuss what his goals were going forward. Now that he's, gotten this year under his belt, we have new goals for next season, competing even these passes better than they were this season. So it's essentially you're going to have a different plan for every athlete, right? But they have to feel prepared. They have to agree with that plan as well, right? Because as much as I can say, I want you to have this skill by this date, if he doesn't think he's ready, then he's not going to go for it, right? So that's like anything. So it takes a lot of planning and being on the same page essentially. And I think it was his first nationals. It was my first nationals. So being his coach was really for tumbling. Is that sport itself was new to me as well this year, so that was really interesting. Definitely learned a lot there too. But so I'm learning as I go as well. And trying to get into the level that he needs to be, and it we both exceeded our own expectations, which is really awesome.
Congrats both of you.
Thank you.
So what's you mentioned the term passes?
In tumbling, it's the skills, you put skills in a row.
Okay.
And so it's called a pass because you start from this point and you end up over here. So it's just a straight line of skills. Gymnastics is different. So gymnastics has the bars, beam, vault, floor, and then there's also trampoline. Right. So trampoline and tumbling T and T are the one discipline, and then artistic, so women's artistic and men's artistic, or WAG and MAG, are the two different disciplines. So usually they're championships and stuff are combined, but sometimes they're separate. So this athlete is only tumbling. I have other athletes that are only artistic, and then there's some that do both.
Right.
So it just depends on what they're interested in. Yeah.
Cool. So let's backpedal then. I'm curious because you've done a lot, and you texted me a while back about how when I told you what the name of the show was, wow, I haven't been in high school for 27 years or however, probably 5 or 7. But hopefully you remember, what was your transition from high school to university, more particularly the choices that took you through that process, why you wanted to go to Laurentian, why you wanted to take the select program?
So I did Con Ed, or concurrent education. That program is only offered at certain universities. I had applied to and gotten into other ones, but the closest to me was Guelph, which didn't offer concurrent education. So I was going to end up taking whatever degree I wanted on top of having to go to a teacher's college somewhere else.
Right.
So then it came down to that, or do I go to a school that has teacher's college built in? I can do everything in 5 years, which then I made that decision that I wanted to do. Then it came down to essentially location as well. I had, you apply to everywhere that you kind of want to go, and you see from there what your top choices were. And I was lucky enough to get into Laurentian. Well, I got into my top choices, but Laurentian was kind of on the top of my list based on the fact that I had family that was living here.
Nice.
So I knew that even though it was 5 hours away from home, it was still, if I did end up getting homesick or anything, then I had people I could lean on.
Right.
And you know, my aunts and uncles always invited me for dinners and things like that. So it made that transition a lot easier. So I was lucky in that case.
Right.
A lot of people don't have that.
No.
But for me, Laurentian was smaller. I got more money for scholarships as well because it was smaller. And so I was able to essentially use that towards my education as well, right? So from there, I had the program I wanted. I had family here, which made it a little bit easier. I'd been traveling up to Sudbury my entire life, so I knew the area. It wasn't like a complete, you know, switch, which I got lucky in that sense. But that kind of helped, I think, my transition in a sense where I knew that I had people that I could rely on, even if I didn't know anybody in Sudbury at that point, or at Laurentian at that point. I still knew all my aunts and uncles and family in Sudbury, right? So that helped me. I didn't really need, like, obviously it was great that they were there and I saw them as much as I could, but it wasn't, I never felt like I wanted to go home in a sense. I didn't feel like I didn't belong up here, and I kind of, you know, I graduated both programs, so 2014 and 2015, and I ended up getting on with Cambrian right away, and I've stayed, right? So 2020 will be my 10th year in Sudbury. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 2010, which is why I was like, I don't even know if I remember high school, but.
When did I graduate? I graduated 2014. Okay. Wow, I'm old too. I mean, it feels. Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, you said, and I was like, oh, I feel like I graduated like last week. That's why. I don't know why that is.
I feel like you graduated university not too long ago, but this will be 5 years. So.
I mean, well, that's not too bad.
But it was still, right? Like, even that, I remember, like I said, walking in here, this whole place is completely different.
Yeah.
But they only renovated it a year ago.
Right.
Right? But I haven't been here for at least 4 years.
Right.
I've been on campus and stuff, but never, like, in the building. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's a weird feeling.
Do you think that coaching and going through all that stuff, maybe like during university or prior to, do you think that like kind of guided what you wanted to do with teaching?
Yeah, I think I'd always worked with kids because I've been coaching for so long. Sure. So I think having that experience definitely kind of cemented the fact that I wanted to do teaching. Obviously there's other streams that you want to go, and I really liked psychology as well, so I think even studying that, I took a little bit of psych courses in university, but I think I would have gone into counseling or something like that if I could, right? But I also wanted to do the teaching, and I really enjoyed helping people and being a leader in that sense. So it just kind of, I think working with kids definitely helped me understand that I wanted to be a teacher. Teaching in post-secondary was not an area that I expected to be in, at least this early. Like I said, I had done the interview just for experience, knowing that eventually I might want to get into it. But it's kind of where I ended up in that case, and I still get to work with youth and whatnot through the coaching, but I'm more, you know, guiding adults now, which is an interesting path as well. And then the academic advising also gives me like the perspective of, you know, stressed out students and things like that that you don't necessarily see as a teacher, right? Because you know that they're stressed and whatever, but they don't come to you with, you know, those other problems and whatever. So it's really interesting to see both sides of that, so I can see what they're struggling with, but then also how we can make a plan to move forward in their academics too.
Right, so you find you just get like a mix of different people, and then you just take whatever experience.
Yeah, exactly, and because I have the experience working with kids as well, so I get to, you know, work with them on the side for coaching, and then I do my other job working with adults. So I kind of get all perspectives, which is really cool.
What advice would you offer any students? Jillian, this one's for you. This question for you. So what advice would you offer any students in concurrent ed who are like beginning or almost midway, roughly in midway, what advice would you give them?
In the program?
Yeah, 100%.
There's a lot of work involved, so I think just being able to stick with it, because the longer you leave that work, the more it piles up, and then the more stressed out you get. It's definitely worth it. In the end, I know it gets stressful, but you see the lives of some of the kids that you work with, and even some of the people that you encounter throughout the process, and you realize how much of a difference you actually make. It's hard to see that from the inside, but you step back and you realize that you are actually helping these kids, and even essentially you're going to learn and be better yourself too.
Right.
And so I've heard even through the grapevine of different other staff that I work with being like, oh, I've heard that you're a really good prof, or your students really like you, or you're really
nice.
Supportive of them, and
That's
I don't
sweet.
see that. Like they don't come to me and tell me that. The students aren't telling me that, but they're telling other people that. And that, I think, meant more hearing that from other people, that word is getting around.
Yeah.
Than them
reputation.
coming up to me. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's good to hear
That's
those
cool.
that you're making a difference and whatnot. But even, like, I had students that were, not confident in their, well, I can only speak for English, but, like, not confident in their writing or whatever, and then they go on to be leaders in different school programs.
Nice.
And they go into these business programs and whatever, and they're giving presentations all the time. And it's having, if I didn't go through concurrent ed, I think I wouldn't have had the same experiences or the confidence to teach even at a university level. Half my students are older than me, right? And gaining that respect is tough.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and I don't look as old as I am either.
No,
so
true.
Walking
So you told me, I was
into
like,
the
actually,
class-
like probably 24, 25.
Yeah. No.
No.
So when I walk into the classroom, like the first day, right, and I walk to the front of the class instead of going to sit down, people kind of look at me. Yeah.
Madame?
Yeah.
Miss?
But, yeah. So, I mean, not doing Con Ed would not have given me the confidence to be able to stand up there in front of all those people and essentially, gain their respect. But I think from a student perspective, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of time. A lot of, traveling if you're in different areas of the community for placements and whatnot. But it's definitely worth it. And I would, do as much as you can to stay on top of the work because it will pile up. But take a step back and kind of realize the amount of impact you actually have.
Yeah. What was your placement like? Where'd you do it?
I did St. David's and St. Ben's.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's 4 placements. I ended up getting lucky enough to be at the same school twice for each, which was really cool. So I did St. David's I was in grade 6, I think. I believe it was 6 there, and then St. Ben's I did 7, 8.
So is St. David's the
one that's 7.
Okay, so it is a different one, right? St.
Yes.
Ben's does just offer that 7, 8, and then
Yeah, St. Ben's
high
is
school.
7, 8, and then high school. So I worked a little bit with the grade 9s, but then I did mostly the elementary side of it.
Cool.
And then I did grade 6, like 4 to 6 really in St. David's. But I was at both schools twice, so I got really lucky there, and I got to make those connections with the teachers that I was working with,
Yeah.
and I still see some of them now and get resources from them and whatever too.
Nice. So do you have any, what advice would you offer people who are in that stage of either not choosing a placement, but to go through and make the most of your placement?
I think it's trusting your education at the point. There's a lot of times when we're not sure that what we learned is going to be useful or the ideas that we have are going to actually work. A lot of it is trial and error, to be honest. It's, obviously you're not setting your students up for failure, but if something doesn't work, learn from that and figure out how to fix it.
Right, don't just stop when something doesn't work.
Exactly.
Just always learning from it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't, I know, obviously, I can understand, there's a lot of students that need placements and stuff, so you don't usually have control over where you go, but make the best of what it is, right? Even having, St. Ben's was a lot like the high school that I was in, that stream. And so, uniforms and the Catholic stream and things like that. So a lot of it was very familiar to me.
Right.
St. David's was obviously the Catholic elementary side, but it was in the a lot of those students had a lot of outside troubles and stuff that you don't see in certain schools. And so I was fortunate to grow up in a very good family and not have some of the same problems or issues in my family that a lot of these students were going through, especially at such a young age.
Yeah.
So that was really, really tough to deal with, right? And you get students that or kids that are, you know, grade 6 and want to be at school rather than going home. And so, yeah, which is something that I never had experienced, right?
People preferring to be at school over home?
Yeah, snow days,
No kidding.
they would they'd walk to school because they didn't want to be at home, or, yeah, you know, and a lot of peer pressure that it really, like when I was in elementary school, we didn't have social media, even high school. Social media was not a thing.
It's terrible
right
now. I would hate to be in high school now or even elementary now.
Yeah, and so having all these kids have cell phones or iPods or whatever it is, and so they're not only involved in the social media world, they're being influenced by it.
And it's
and
not
it was hard
good.
to compete with.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So I think you don't have control over where you get placed or what experiences you're going to have,
Right.
but make the best out of them and learn from them, right? Like having those students that would rather be with you than their own families was, you know, you learn a lot from that.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, right? And it's heartbreaking, and you don't know their stories, but you know, you come to learn about them and hopefully influence those kids in a way that is going to benefit them, right? And so you can't control what it is you're going to experience or where you go, especially for placement, but making the most out of it is definitely something that I would recommend.
Speaking of just backtracking to the social media part with the iPod, my 8-year-old nephew has an iPod, and then my 10-year-old nephew, 10-year-old, and my 14-year-old niece, who was 12 when she first like got Instagram. I'm like, that's not okay. I don't understand how that manifests. Oh yeah, it's brutal. And I actually told her, she was like, Glenn, why don't you follow me? And I was like, she found out I don't. So I was like, well, I showed her my timeline. I was like, look, if there's a benefit to the content you're producing, I will follow you back. But if it's going to be photos of, like, and I'm trying to say this in the nicest, most like constructive way, is if there's photos of just like new haircut, or like, it's like, well, but if it's like other stuff and it's cool, or if it's like, hey, like or like just sharing other people's like memes, like, I don't really care. It's not like, oh, that's a cool trip, or like someone posted a photo from like their weekend and they went like fishing, like, oh, that's sick, like, where'd you go? And stuff like that, right? It creates that like conversation.
Connection,
yeah, exactly. And that's what, when I was in South America, one of my Meet-A-Wee trip facilitators, shout out to you, Joe, he was like big on like, that's how you use social media, instead of this just like, hey, let's flood it with things nobody cares about. So that's kind of, that's devastating to know that they all have that. Because I didn't get Facebook until like high school.
Yeah, I was, probably like grade 12, right? Like that's when it even had just come out kind of thing. But, and especially working with teenage girls, like I see a lot of it on that end, right? So trying to, like, I was talking to a coach this weekend actually, and it was more or less came down to the point where, you know, the athletes want to be in the gym, they want to do more training, you want to, you know, keep them there as much as you can, but you also want them to have a life. But when they're out in the real world, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know what they're up to, but when they're in the gym, you know exactly what they're doing, you know exactly who they're with, right? And so you can be there for them in that sense. And so it's just, it comes down to, there's so much out there, and trying to influence positivity is really important. And they're essentially, like you said, they're flooded with different images and pictures, and like even in the sport of gymnastics, a lot of, you know, there's body things that come with that, because you are in suits, and you know, it's a really, really tough sport to be in, whether it's physical or mental, right? And so to try to get these girls, you know, confident in themselves, essentially, whether it's doing their tricks or you know, how they look, or how fit they are. I can't even
like come close to imagining that, especially like the suits they wear and like how they feel and how other people because what they see maybe a couple hours a day maybe. And
it depends on the groups, right? So but I'll see them for at least 3 to 4 hours a day. That's
a good chunk of time though.
Exactly, right?
And influence them positively for that amount of time.
And like I said, I try to be like lead in that sense as well. Like everything on my social media, like I do have a lot of them that follow me, but it's all stuff that they're okay to see, and it's
like not like party stuff. You want to be that good influence.
Exactly,
stuff.
right?
100%.
So not sharing stuff like that is important because they're going to feed off of what I do essentially. And you know, I've been a big advocate for keeping everything, you know, essentially clean in a sense, and I use that lightly, but whatever you would like, whatever you would want them to see, right? I'm not going to post stuff if I think that they shouldn't be looking at it or whatever, right? And so it comes down to them being influenced by everything else. So if I can prevent them from seeing one other thing, then I'm gonna you know, do that. So, but also using it in a way that like is, you know, encourages them to be confident in themselves and things like that, right? And I share a lot of like posts about them and how proud I am of them, and if they get new skills, I'll share that on not only like our gym page but also on my own, right? Because I am
Facebook,
their coach.
First 5 things are all about
gymnastics, all of it.
Nice.
Exactly, right? So showing them that I'm also proud of what they've accomplished too, right? So like you can tell them that all you want, but it's only you and them that know that, right? Whereas when you use that positively and you share that,
one of their uncles is like, "Oh, way to go!" Bring it up to the family dinner. You're the cool kid now. And everything changes all because of you.
Exactly. And I'll get people coming up being like, "Oh, I saw your athlete do this." Like even with championships, right? Like you saw that on my social media, so it was really cool.
Yeah, those literally. Oh wow.
Yeah, right. So it's really cool. But even using that in a positive way is important.
Yeah, a lot of like what I try to do is just, hey, here's a cool place I've been. This is like what it was, and like I think to narrow it down even more, like encryption and all that stuff that's like, or scripture, sorry, on the posts you make is super crucial too. And it's either short and sweet, or if you want to elaborate and like share an idea or share a thought and stuff, or like my specific thing, like, oh, if it's traveling or if it's training, everything else doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's like nobody really should see like the party stuff you're doing, or like the solicit, like all this negative stuff.
And I actually run lessons with my class about what they should and should not have on social media. Yeah, because it's, especially in college, right? You're training them to be professionals.
True.
And a lot of my students are business students, and the first thing employers will do is try to look you up online, right? And so if your presence is there and it's all, you know, stuff that they wouldn't approve of or that gives them a bad name, then why would they hire you, right? And we go through people that have been fired based on Facebook, or you know, Google yourself and see what comes up. Even if you comment on like open pages and you make those comments, if they're really negative,
they show
your
up.
Profile might be private, but that comment is not, and your name's attached to it, right? And sometimes they just don't realize it, right? And so we actually have lessons, and you know, I have them look themselves up and see what comes up and things. And a lot of times it's cool because they'll get like old photos from sports, or like they'll be in the paper or whatever, so they'll get those. But it's, you know, it's one of those things that you do have to be cautious about, for sure.
Speaking of which, let's play a fun game. On that note, I'm gonna look us both up and see what comes up. I'm gonna Google us both. So I had it on airplane mode, so that's probably too. All right. So is it Allison? You think that would show up, or is it Allie?
Probably Allie.
Okay.
That's what I have all my social media stuff on.
Okay, so there's Academic Advisor, LinkedIn, our team's gymnastics, YouTube, Instagram. There we go, and connects directly to it. Careful what you post. Now, this is where I'm nervous. Let's go myself. Glenn Young, Greg Horace. Here we go. Instagram right away. LinkedIn right away. Meddling at OFSA right away. Boom. Instagram. Yeah. So be mindful, because in one Google search they have access to. That's terrifying. All of it.
And you don't usually think to do stuff like that, right?
No, not at all. He was like, oh, go ahead. Like, I like keeping mine public. Because I think I'll be honest, I have a lot of cool stuff on there. So I'm like, you know what, if you want to see it, see it. But
yeah, but even what people comment on it, right?
Right.
And because you don't have any control over what they comment.
Right. You can
delete them if they're not appropriate, right? Or not starting like argument battles or anything like that, right? Because people will see those. And
I don't respond to any comment. And of course, like, you know, you can imagine how my little brother is. where he'll comment on it. Like if it's a photo of me deadlifting, he's just like, and my like vision with that is like, oh, if I can lift this much weight, what's someone else's? Just go for it, try, right? He's like, yo, those weights are fake. It's like, those look like frisbees, and it's like, it's just gonna like everyone. I'm like, thanks, man. Thanks for the portion of your day you spent sharing on my journey. So
that sounds like something he would do, which is funny.
So speaking of him, in that case, I met you right after. So my dad introduced me to you, but it was right after. It was at Porchetta Bingo.
Yes.
Right? And we're sitting there. I got a couple of my friends with me and little brother Neil, and he looks at me. So you walk by, he looks at me. Swear to God, is what he says. He's like, "Dude, I think that chick kicked me out of the gym zone one time." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, her right there. I think I know her." I was like, He's like, "Yeah, she kicked me out of gym zone." I was like, "What? What do you
I've
mean?"
never kicked anybody out.
She kicked me and Nick out of gym zone, bro. Of course, he's the type of person who exaggerates 90% of what he says. So I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, Nick and I would just run in and just fuck around." And I'm like, "Well, sounds about right. Like, I know both of you." But then, yeah, and then my dad was like, "Yeah, it's Alan." And he was like, "Oh yeah, it definitely is her." But otherwise, that was how.
I may have gotten mad at him for not respecting the rules, but right. I don't have any authority to kick them out, so I would not have done that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But so
that's funny.
Question for you then about that event, less so, but more dragon boating. How did you get into it? Because it's like, oh, it doesn't seem like it ties into gymnastics or like teaching or anything.
No. So I wrote like this whole story about it actually recently on my Facebook page. You probably, I don't know if you saw it or not.
Saw a bit of it, but skimmed over.
So I worked for Tutor Doctor,
yes,
and they had a team in.
Okay.
Probably 3 years ago now, they had a team in. So it was just like someone I worked with posted like, hey, we have a team, like if anyone wants to join, come on out, whatever. So I did it recreationally with them. It was a lot of fun. We had like 3 or 4 practices, and then we raced, and we thought we did really well. We did do really, really well. We came in, I think, 3rd or 4th or something.
Oh, nice.
In our category. Excuse me, in our category. But they didn't have a team the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I really I was like, okay, whatever, won't do it this year, I'll wait to see if something else comes up. But then I kept hearing the commercials on the radio, and I was like, oh, Sudbury Dragon Boat Festival, I really want to do it again. So I just posted on my Facebook being like, if anyone has a team I can join, I want to do it again, right? That's dangerous. And then someone that I work with at Gym Zone actually was on your dad's team and said, you can contact our coach, here's his contact or whatever. So she gave me Ozzy's contact. Nice. And so he's like, yeah, for sure, come up on this day, here's our practices, whatever. Nice. So did that, lots of fun, joined that team, so Team Aloe for that. And then I realized that I didn't know a lot of what I thought I knew. So the stroke was different, and the way you sit was different, and it was all this thing, right? So I learned a lot, even the first practice. Mm-hmm. And so then I was getting complimented on how much I had learned even from that hour or 2 hours or whatever it was. And then they were you can come out tomorrow, because they trained Tuesday, Thursday was the competitive team, and then the rec boat was on Wednesday. So I was there on the Wednesday. And then they're like, well, you can come out tomorrow and try it with our competitive team if you want. And I was like, oh, okay, not realizing how hardcore they were, right? So I came out the next day.
Dangerous thing to do.
Yes, but because I'd been a competitive athlete, I didn't really
it's a
think
smoother
about
transition,
it, right?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, I was competitive, I can hack this, right? So I went out on the next day with the team, and our warm-up was 7 straight minutes of paddling, which I had done barely 2 full minutes of paddling, the practice before. It was crazy. So it was ridiculous, and I remember, for them, they'd been training for months. So
right, so this is their warm-up.
Yeah, that was their warm-up.
What's going on?
I was I haven't done that ever in my entire life.
Dad, what are you doing? No, what are you doing to them?
So that was our warm-up. And then, we whatever, I got through that. We did like other stuff, and our drills were crazy and whatnot. And I remember thinking like halfway through the practice, like I was literally, my arms were going to fall off and I thought I was going to die. But I thought, like, this is where it's so different from gymnastics, is it's a team sport. Like, that's it, like, be all end all. It is a team sport. You have 21 other people in the boat with you. If you stop, they're carrying you, essentially,
it's
right?
weakest link style.
Yeah, and so gymnastics is very much like, yes, you have to work together, the people you train with are your team, but you compete individually.
Yeah, so
right?
Jiu-jitsu with me.
Yeah, and so with this, it was like, if I stopped, then I'm letting them down. And I remember thinking, like, I don't have to come back to this practice. I can just do the rec boat and I'll be fine. But I cannot give up right now because there are 20 other people relying on me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's honestly what got me through, like, the next little bit.
Okay.
And then I had made up my mind that I was only gonna do the like rec side for a little bit, try it for the year, and then maybe go competitive the next year. I get out of the boat, and like 3 of the coaches had told me how much I had improved and like how impressed they were with my endurance and like all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, how am I quitting now then?
Yeah, you're like,
they're impressed with me. Like,
that's how they get you.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a 10% physical battle,
Yeah.
and the rest is like, well, I can't quit. Everyone's thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. So I ended up, like, that's essentially how I got sucked into it. And then from there, it was like knowing that I had such a support team behind me. Like, I was the newbie. I was like making mistakes left, right, and center. But nobody getting out of that boat said, you don't belong here.
Right.
And that was probably the most, like, important thing. And from there, I didn't really care, like, you know, how well I did the next time. Obviously, I'm trying to get better and whatever, but I knew that no matter what happened, they were not going to put me down for it, right? And having that team was something that I didn't expect in that sense. So, you know, I made a lot of new connections, I met a lot of new people, but none of them made me feel like I didn't belong there, even though I was a new person and I didn't know a lot, right? And these are people that had just, you know, they were prepping for nationals, essentially. And I was coming in, like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was learning as I went, and they were all super helpful. So then, you know, going in, as we got, you know, more into the season, they realized how much I was improving. And I mean, gymnastics helped with that, right? Because not only is it, like you said, a physical sport, it's also mental. So having that, being able to push myself there, but also like the strength to continue and endurance and stuff, right? So, so it helped me kind of gain that confidence, I think, as well. And then I ended up in the front seat, which is the stroke seat, and you have to keep time. So that was,
you set that pace.
Tough, yeah. So I was lucky enough to, like, I'm usually with the same partner all the time, and she's phenomenal. But I learned a lot from her, and then from there I kept getting complimented on like how well I was, or how fast I was learning, and how well we were doing and whatever. So that that's kind of been my seat since then. So it's been really, really great. And then this year again, obviously the team changed a little bit, but I carried into the competitive season, and we raced in Sudbury and did really well. And then we're racing in Toronto in a few weeks. But it
Nationals?
was just the like provincial.
Oh, okay.
races, yeah.
Sorry, I misread my dad's calendar.
No, he like
No?
they had.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
giant.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah. So we had that
So
race,
small.
but even the Sudbury race, it was funny because I remember, like, I mean, my team initially, my tutor jockey team did really well. We all worked really well together. I made lots of good connections, but our time was like almost, I don't know, what, 30 or 40 seconds longer than what this team does now, right? So like in
That's
our
a big
boat,
difference.
so in our boat we'll hit a certain time and they're like, come on guys, you can do better. Whereas in my first boat it was like, oh, you know, we got like just over 2.5 minutes, we're good, like we got it. Whereas this boat's like, you're over 2 minutes, like come on, you can push it. So it was so funny seeing that, because comparing the times, right, where the Sudbury Festival this year, we were second out of the entire festival. So like our time, it wasn't just like second in our heat, it was like second in the entire festival.
Second fastest boat.
Which was, yeah, exactly, right, which was something that I wasn't expecting.
Right.
And then looking at our times, like I compared the times from the first year that I did it, and like we did well for our heat, but we were like the lowest heat, right? And I didn't really know that, like coming into the sport new, I didn't really know how it worked and whatever. But then seeing the difference and being so proud of like how far we've come in just a year, right? So cool. That's really cool. And so I've actually like I got a few friends into it, and like they've stayed with it, and then my one friend joined this year, and she now again she's part of the team now, right? And she said the same thing, like she joined it kind of based on knowing that it was, you know, a good sport and a good team and whatever, but didn't expect to be as welcomed as she was. And now she's made other connections like outside of this and whatever. And you know, she had a friend ask her if our team has room on it for next year because her friend's team didn't get along well, right? And my friend's like, oh, I've never had that experience with this team and whatever. So
nice.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I would definitely recommend, like everybody try, even if you don't like it or you don't stick with it. But I definitely have learned a lot about myself and about team dynamics essentially and whatever. So it's been really fun.
So with that being said, which do you prefer now? Team, being a member of a team, you know where this is going for sure, or competing solo as a solo athlete?
That's tough because it's two different sports.
Yeah.
I really I love the sport of gymnastics and learning the skills and being able to, you know, throw your body in ways that you didn't know possible and essentially defy gravity.
So I want a backflip. I'm not gonna get off this.
You're defying gravity in that sense.
Oh, be a ninja.
Exactly, but the team and the camaraderie that you have, especially when you're in a boat and you're relying on other people, right? And I mean that I can't speak for every team because I'm sure not every Dragon Boat team gets along as well as our team does. But knowing that, you know, those 20 we have more than 20 people on our team, and that they have my back no matter what, right? And even coming back from nationals, the weekend I came back, they were like, oh, how do you do, and how'd it go, and did you fun? And so they're interested in not only what's going on in practice, but, you know, life outside of that.
They care about you.
Exactly.
Not so much you as a member of the, like, the portion of you that commits to the team, but you as a,
Yeah, so I think sport-wise, like, I enjoy doing what I did for gymnastics and like learning all those skills, but I do enjoy the team aspect as well. So I think it's not really comparable in a sense, but at the same time I'd rather compete with a team than solo, but not to say that I didn't enjoy competing individually and gaining that confidence in yourself and, you know, having the coaches that I did and things like that. So
cool. What about, so that's a tricky one, you're right, to compare. But what about during the time of, like, say, game day, competition day? What's that like in comparison? Versus, like, you're competing as a team, you show up, you say hi, high five all your teammates, chat, whatever, get in the boat, and it's go time. Or it's you have your music, you take the headphones off, take the sweater off, and you compete.
It's more nerve-wracking going alone because you know that you're the only one really that can control what's going to happen, right? So definitely more nerve-wracking. It takes a lot more mental strength just to get out there alone and know that there is everybody watching you. But at the same time, with the team, you don't want to let them down, right? And so, and knowing that you have no control over what the people behind you or in front of you are going to do, you have to be able to work with that, right? Whatever happens, like if you know you get too much water in the boat, or if you're someone, like if you clash paddles with somebody or whatever, you have to be able to recover from that. So you definitely learn a lot quicker, I think, in that sense, when you are relying on, you know, 20 other people, but also having, you know, the confidence to go out there alone and do, you know, whatever you've trained to do is important as well. So
nice. I get so nervous doing this.
I don't usually, like, I don't get nervous a lot. I mean, doing gymnastics and stuff I did, but like, I speak in front of people my entire career, so. That's
why I was like, she'll be fine. I was like, did I mention that there's video too? She'll be alright, teacher. So, an educator. So, with such of a busy schedule that you have, how do you stay, you mentioned the discipline aspect is how you kind of keep going, but on the days that are difficult and the days that, like, you just don't feel like it, how do you stay motivated and focused? Like, what's the, when you look at, like, like money, anything, like, I'm just curious about that.
I think it takes a lot of personal perseverance, I guess, to kind of work through that stage of not being motivated. Having the right people around you is important as well. Being able to, like, I guess, feed off of their energy, and, you know, trying to find things that keep you going. If you do get run down, knowing when you're getting run down, and how to fix it, or how to, you know, gain your energy back, even if it's just like taking a nap, or you know, watching an episode of something and then getting back into it, or whatever.
Just
like
spacing out.
Exactly, right? And there's, like, even myself, I'm not just go all the time. Yes, for the most part I am, but you'll hit roadblocks, right? And you'll hit walls, and you just need to keep trekking, essentially, and find something that will, you know, distract you for a little bit and then get you back on track.
Right.
And finding that motivation is, I mean, mostly it just comes from within.
True.
And it's tough at times, especially when you don't want to do anything that day, or you feel like everything's just piling up and you don't know, you know, how to get through it. I mean, I sometimes will just make to-do lists and, like, put things that you can check off easily, right? Like if it's clean the dishwasher or something, you empty the dishwasher and then you check that off and it's done. So then you feel more motivated in that sense, right? Where it's little things. Putting really big tasks on there that you know are going to take you a week gets, you know, kind of demotivating, essentially, right? Where you're like, okay, well, I'm never going to get that done, so then you just get defeated. But having little things, or breaking it into pieces, or like when I have assignments due, I'll do like an outline, and then that's done, and then I go back, I do something later and write like a paragraph, and then I come back to it. And so breaking up that way sometimes too, where it's little pieces rather than huge things at the same time.
So, question for you. Do you make your bed every morning?
I try to, yes.
Okay.
Doesn't always happen, but I know there's, like, I saw a video of like a drill sergeant or something.
Yeah, the Navy SEAL gives
yeah,
like, that's why I always ask everybody.
Yeah.
Like, question for you. Are you the type of person to make your bed?
Yeah, I try. It doesn't always happen, and my life is sometimes a mess in that sense, but I mean, and I try, like, whenever we go to competitions and stuff and we're in hotel rooms, like, I try to actually make the bed so that I know that, you know, you come back and no matter what happened that day, like, you again have something to, like, that's already made, and that's kind of your first task of the day.
Yeah, nice.
But I find, like, when I go to competitions, it puts me in, like, a good mood to know that everything is, like, good, you're not rushing,
you're controlling what you can control.
Yeah, exactly, right? Whereas here, it's a little bit like if you have to be at work and you're running late, like,
chill on the bed, maybe.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
so I can understand where that comes from.
Cool.
And I completely agree with that, of, like, you then have somewhere to, you know, it's made and it's clean and whatever.
Yeah, like the philosophy of having, like, little tasks.
Exactly, and getting them done as soon as you can, right? And, like, I actually have, what was it? It started a few years ago for, like, a New Year's resolution where my friend had, like, shared it on Facebook or something. It was such, like, an easy thing to do. And it was anything that can get done in 5 seconds or less, do it right away. And that was so important to me. So, like, if it came down to putting the dish in the dishwasher rather than in the sink, or if it came to, like, throwing your clothes, starting the wash, right? Even throwing the clothes in the wash, turning it on, and then leaving.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
pretty quickly. Or
transferring them from the washer to the dryer, or folding a towel. Like, anything that can be done in 5 seconds or less, do it. Right? And it was, like, that alone changed part of that perspective, right? Of, like, even, I don't know, recently it was like, I don't remember what it was, but I remember thinking, like, if I don't do this now, I'm not going to do it. But then I had, like, almost walked away from it, but then I did it right there, and it was done in 5 seconds, right? So it then kept, like, say it was putting a pen away or something, right? It's like, if you can do it, then get it done in 5 seconds, right? And it's so simple, and that alone, like, helped me to kind of stay on top of things. Even, like, assignments, if I can get it done in half an hour, why am I not doing it now if I have that extra half hour, right? And that's kind of, right? And so that kind of changed my perspective of, yes, you could have downtime and you could waste your time watching TV or something, but if you're going to spend a half hour watching TV and then stress about the other stuff that you have to do
while you're watching that, I don't understand
so
that.
do the stuff that takes you a half hour, And then when you're done and you think that you've accomplished, as much as you can at that point, then take your half hour, like another half hour and watch TV or something. But I find like if I take that downtime, sometimes I stress about what needs to get done.
Yeah, and then it's counterproductive.
Exactly, right? Sure. So if it can be done in 5 seconds or less, do it.
If it can be done
right?
in 5 seconds or less, do it. It's going to be its own little like lessons learned clip on Instagram for. That's sick. So going back to what you mentioned in the how you stay focused and everything, you mentioned finding like it's all about, and my last guest, George, shout out to him, he mentioned like everything's about having the right people around you, and you just mentioned it, and having the right people around you really you found makes a difference for you in terms of being motivated, because you're not being brought down, you're being lifted up, and like your body can adapt to your crazy schedule. That's what I don't think people understand. It's like, hey, your body, like when I started training at this gym that's like connected to the jiu-jitsu gym. So now I train with the fitness center there, and the guy, shout out to Mitch, he was explaining that like, he's like, if you work out for an hour and a half and then you do jiu-jitsu for an hour and a half, you're going to be exhausted, you're going to be sore, it's going to suck. But your body over time will, like your body's supposed to adapt to high stress situations, so that if you put yourself through that, then once you go through, your body over a certain amount of time, it becomes not just resilient. It's resilient for it. It's not just a habit, it's now a lifestyle, and your body's now elevated to that. But
well, even for Dragon Boat or whatever, one of the quotes that I like is, right now it's tough, but soon it'll be your warm-up. Right? Like even the 7 minutes of paddling that I did with the first time that
it was their warm-up.
It was their warm-up, and it's now my warm-up. I do 10 minutes as a warm-up, right? But a year ago, that was tough for me. Right? I mean, it gets tough, and not to say that it's not hard, but that was not, like, if someone right now was to pull me, and say, go do 10 minutes of paddling, I could be like, sure, why not? But a year ago, when I first started with a competitive team, and they had said that to me, I probably would have fainted, right? Like, I've never done this. Exactly.
I'm good.
Right? So it will become your warm-up, essentially.
Right. I was watching this one where, like, this guy mentioned in this other interview, can't remember the name of the episode, but he was talking that his dad would always tell him, he's like, yo, when you're going through like the difficult part of training, or that like moment where you're like, I should just leave, because we all have that, like it happens, but it's like every single day I'll show up and be like, I really want to train today. It's just telling that voice to like take a hike, I find. But he was like, something along the lines of like, if you go through it, like as you're going through it, just understand it will be over. Like it will end. It doesn't go on forever. And then when you're done, you're like, oh, I did that. I feel I've never heard anyone regret, like say that they regret. Exactly. I'm like dumbfounded by the people who don't like understand why, or who aren't physically active. I can't comprehend it. I mean, like right now, it's driving my brain.
Well, even like going for a walk or something rather than just sitting down.
Right?
Or like my friend likes to say, it doesn't matter how fast you go, you're still lapping everybody on the couch. Right? Like if you're running, because I went running with him, but he's really tall, so he has really long legs. And I was like, you can go your pace, but like I'm gonna be a lot slower. He's like, but it doesn't matter how fast you go, you're still lapping everybody.
That's sweet. That's a good
on the
attitude.
couch, right? So
he's not like, oh, come on, that's
exactly,
sweet.
Right?
Good people.
So it's one of those things where you kind of think of it that way, and even if you don't beat your time, like say you're trying to set a time for a 5K or whatever, and you don't beat that time, but you still worked out and you still did something rather than sitting down or whatever. So
Interesting. So a question for you then is, how do you find the right people to be around and stuff? Because I find a lot of people grow up and they either get lucky, like myself and you from what you're saying, or they get unlucky and they don't have that support system. How would you go about finding the right people to surround yourself with?
I think it does come down to environment. Like I didn't come to Sudbury with anybody when I moved from home, but I met a lot of people here that were in the same boat, right? You come 5 hours north, and there's lots that you essentially have to get used to, right? And you kind of stick to the people that you think are going to help you adjust to that. don't know, like you can't really control who you're going to be around in that sense. But making sure that, you know, if they're doing things that are against your moral code or whatever, then finding a different group, right? And a lot of times, especially, you know, working with kids or teenagers, you see them get sucked into these, you know, bad influences. And if they have enough of a, you know, essentially knowledge to pull themselves out of that, then they'll find other people that can be good influences rather than poor influences. So I think it not only does it come down to like where you are and who you're with, it also comes down to knowing how much self-respect you have for your, essentially, to pull yourself out of bad situations like that, right? Where there are people that are not as fortunate as we have been, but I have a lot of friends that weren't that fortunate growing up, but they were able to pull themselves out of those situations, right? And that just came from how strong you are mentally, how, you know, the willingness that you have to get through that, right? And they wanted to pull themselves out, and they found ways to do that, whether it was through help, like professional help, or, you know, relying on people, or, you know, changing the mindset of, you know, I want to be doing this, but I should be doing this, and so following the should be and not want to do, that kind of thing. So I think you don't really have control over who's around you, but knowing who you kind of can rely on, or figuring that out as soon as you can, right? Because yes, you want to meet new people, you want to get to know them, but if you start to get to know them and realize that they don't share the same values as you, then having enough self-respect to essentially, you know, kindly remove yourself from that situation.
True. Okay, so Allie, hello. Have you done any cool trips in your lifetime so far?
I did go to Austria and Germany in grade 11 with my music department. In high school, I did music and theater all throughout, like, high school and university. So it was really cool. We did the, like, Sound of Music tour. So we got to see, like, the Von Trapp house. Yeah, it was really cool. It was
cool.
Huge. We toured a salt mine. We went to, like, different concerts and different museums and whatnot as well. So I really hope to go back one day because I loved it there. And I find pictures that I had taken and, like, you know, remember how much fun I had and whatnot. It was a really, really cool trip. But I mean, I haven't been anywhere other than that. I mean, I would love to have time to travel and
yeah, it's just not in the schedule of life yet.
Yeah, which hopefully it will be. But I really, really enjoyed that. So I think having the opportunity to travel with my high school was really important.
Are you glad that you had an experience like that when you were younger? Because I know, I mean, I didn't go anywhere when I was young until, like, as soon as I graduated college, and then I just went South America, Europe, just.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I had the advantage of it being planned, like the itinerary was all planned. Nice. There was a group, I knew who I was with, everything like that. So I did enjoy going with them, and I think it's great that they offer these kinds of opportunities, because a lot of people wouldn't get to go on their own after university or college or whatever, just finances and whatnot. But I mean, I do wish that, I'm sure there's a lot of things that I don't remember about it, or that I didn't appreciate to the same extent as I would now. So I think going, you know, in adulthood as well might help. And you also have different friends when you're then, right? Like, so the people that I went with in high school, I maybe was close friends with like one or two of them, but not super close with the rest of them. And you do make those connections as you go. But if I was to plan a trip now, it would be with people that, you know, I've been friends with for a long time at this point, or that I think would, you know, enjoy it as much as I do or whatever. So you kind of, that's the advantage of going in adulthood, is that you can pick who you go with, whereas if it's with your schools, exactly, it's whoever signs up for it and whatever, right? So
it's pretty sweet. Did you go to Vienna? Is that yeah, nice.
Yeah, we went to Vienna. We saw the Vienna Boys Choir. That was cool. And we saw one of the concentration camps, which was really eye-opening.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, so that was terrifying and very I don't know, it was like
Yeah,
scared
like?
because you could feel the energy,
Mm.
but you also feel very lucky that you didn't
Like
encounter anything
experience
like that.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
Wow.
So that was, one of the more like, it was crazy, and we got to see a lot of what went on, or not see it, but like, we saw the pits, and you saw like where the prisoners were held and things like that. So it was really sad, but you also gained kind of a new appreciation for the life that you had, or that you have, right? So I don't remember exactly like the other places that we went, but we did get to see one of the concentration camps, so that was really interesting.
And it was like a walkthrough style?
Yeah, they had like things blocked off, but you could still see with glass and whatnot. So we saw like the gas chambers, and we saw like the pits where they would keep all the people, and so it was really eye-opening. But you definitely gain a new appreciation for what you have, and the fact that you didn't go through that, and you hearing stories from other people that did go through that, you understand it a little bit more, because you can see what they went through.
Did you just read those stories, or did you?
Yeah, and there was a tour guide.
Okay.
So the tour guide would like kind of tell us about things that would happen, and different locations, and like what would go on in those locations and things. So it was really, really interesting. And I remember, because I did theater all through university as well, the one thing, like, because I had the experience of going to the concentration camp, for one of my classes, we actually read a play called Bent, and it was essentially about these, like, I don't remember it essentially word for word, but it was about the two characters. It's only two people in the play, and they end up getting captured, so they're in a concentration camp. One of them is Jewish and one of them is gay, and the one they're both gay, but
one's just Jewish.
One is Jewish and gay, and the other one, I believe, is gay. But one of them only tells them that he's gay. Only tells them that he's Jewish. He refuses to say that he's gay. The other one says that he's gay and gets tortured more, right? And so it's this whole battle between identity, right? Because you internally want to be proud of who you are and who you identify as, but knowing that you're going to get tortured for it,
it's like,
it came down to this whole, essentially it was like a monologue, or I guess between the two of them, right? And then it was like super like gut-wrenching, and because I had been to the concentration camp, it was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what this would have been like. And it was saddening to know that this one character refused to identify fully as who he was, because he was afraid of what was going to happen to him, right? But then the other one was very proud of it. He openly admitted it, and they treated him horribly, or more horribly than they did the first one. But he wasn't ashamed of it, right? And then you look at kind of the society that we have now, and people not being ashamed of who they are. And I'm a big advocate for that, especially in a sport with youth, and them being proud of who they are, what they do, things like that. And reading a play like that, that was probably the one that has stuck out with me the most from that course. I mean, there's a lot that we read, there's a lot that I've encountered as I've been in theater, but that alone is like probably the only one that I had read and I was like almost crying by the end of it. It really hit hard, and then having the experience of going to the concentration camp was like, oh my gosh.
Hit home.
Yeah, right?
Oh my.
But I would definitely, like, if anyone really likes reading theater or reading plays, like, read it. It's phenomenal. Bent, yeah.
B-E-N-T.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and it's essentially a battle between identity, right? And these two people who are gay and Jewish, and one only identifies as Jewish because he doesn't want to be, he knows what's coming to him if he identifies as gay as well. So, yeah, it was gut-wrenching, and having a lot of friends that are not ashamed of their identity, right? And being in class with them and seeing how essentially that their life would be so different if they had grown up in that era,
Mhm.
right, or in that area of the world, right? And so yeah, sorry to like
I can literally only
put a damper on
I
that.
can't even imagine
Yeah.
what that's like. Because I've been, because did you go to Berlin? Which one?
No.
No?
No.
Because I know there was like, I think it was like cool like tombstones with like statues that like represented.
Yes.
And in Berlin, like these giant ones. And my friend James and I, when we were in Berlin, we saw them. We were like, I was like, because everyone's like, oh, this many like Jews died in the war. And we're like, huh. And then you see actually, and I'm like, this is the stupidest amount.
Gross, yeah.
And that was just there, and then there's
Yeah.
other places around the world. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine, but that stuff really, like that specific time frame, really fascinates me for some
Yeah.
reason. It's
Yeah.
just every time I read or like listen to anything about it or watch any videos, it's just
Yeah.
it blows my mind.
I
It
don't
hurts.
know if like you like reading plays, but even if you don't, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I'll give it a look.
I have.
Sure.
I think I might have it actually. If you like wanted a copy of it, but
Yeah, please.
it's like phenomenal, and I just like having that experience. And like you said, you saw the graves of those people, right? And so having reading something like this and knowing that that's the era that it happened in,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my gosh, like I had no. Yeah, so.
Oh my,
it's crazy.
that's intense. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Oh my, yeah, no, please. I definitely
I'll
take
try
a
to find
copy
that
for
for
sure.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
It's phenomenal.
Jeez, that's intense. I had what was it? It was recently, I feel like a friend of mine, when they mentioned the term swastika, like to
Swastika,
reference,
yeah.
to reference something that was like sounds similar, like, oh, I don't know, like Camp Swastika. Like, hold on a second. What do you know about that
Yeah.
time frame
Yeah.
and that, like, what went on? It's like, there are people who weren't even as bad as Hitler who did some pretty, like, and then I dropped like a few things, like this person, like this is how, or like they torture one twin to see if the other would feel a certain way, or like, oh, like you have blue eyes and like I have brown eyes. Oh, let's take some blue ink and inject it in my eyes to see if we. That wasn't even the ringleader.
Yeah.
So, and I can only and I'm only reading this, so I can't even fathom going like what that would be like. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. And it makes you appreciate
man.
that you didn't go through stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And you kind of have a new view on everything, right? And so yes, we have tough times in our lives and whatever, but if they can go through stuff like that and come out from that and learn from that, then why can we not overcome our battles, right? So it definitely gave me a new perspective for sure.
So switching topics to a more
Cheery.
light topic, please. Where do you find time, and how strict, or we'll stick with one question, how strict do you find your sleep schedule? Based off how do you deal with it, how long do you need in terms of recovery, how serious it is? If you just get to your bed and you're like...
I actually usually have a really hard time falling asleep. I sleep maybe 6 hours at that. Not a lot. Because I'm not in bed until like at least 1 a.m. and then I'm up by 6 depending. So it just depends on like what the day is and what my schedule is that day. I'll stay up as late as I can. I also don't mind waking up. Like I don't like getting out of bed, but like once I'm up and showered or whatever, I'm like whatever. I'm good to go, right? So it's not like I dread getting out of bed or anything if I haven't slept a lot. I just try to find ways to like keep going and whatever, right? So I don't drink coffee, so that was something I am proud to say that I got through 5 years.
Yeah, good for you.
Coffee. It's not gonna start now, so.
Yeah, no, I find once you're at that point, it's like you either drink it all the time or not at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of like me when I was in my last year of college, I would walk to Tim Hortons at 3 in the morning, get like an extra large French vanilla, and leave. You probably wouldn't do that. You'd be like, I'm good with this glass
I did pull
water.
some all-nighters, but that was times that I cannot imagine doing that now because I was in university and a lot younger and probably can't do it now, but.
So do you have a like morning and evening routine?
I usually shower in the morning and then I just like get up, get ready, walk my dog, whatever. And then in the evening I'm not usually home till after 9. Okay. So it's like make dinner then or have dinner like made and then I eat it throughout the day or whenever I can find time.
Okay.
Usually then I'll get like work done or homework or whatever I have to do. So it doesn't usually happen until after 9,
Stuff that's
which
like
is why I'm up so late. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so so like there's nothing too like concrete, like you get
No,
dressed,
I
you
don't
have
say
this
like I
much
have
water,
to be
you
out
eat
of
this
this.
much.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean I wish I could be that organized, to be honest.
Yeah. Don't know.
Usually life throws things at you that you don't expect. So like even if I plan to be done a certain assignment by a certain time, it probably will take me longer anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if I try to like schedule something in for like an hour after, it probably won't end up happening.
Right. Okay.
So I just try to realize that things will get done. I just have to pace myself.
Okay.
But nothing
Cool.
like concrete.
Yeah, no. Nice. Interesting. So we'll end it on this then. Do you have a specific lesson / quote that like has stuck with you for a while or has stood out to you that's like, oh yeah, this is most applicable to me?
Ooh.
I love this question so much.
I have a lot of quotes that I really
Nice.
like.
What's your top 3 then? Just bang them out.
Honestly, I have no idea. There's so many.
When I say quotes, what's your first one that comes to mind?
It's from Rent, because I really like musicals. Forget regret or life is yours to miss. So that's from one of the songs. So if you regret anything, then you focus more on that than you do on whatever your future holds.
You said forget,
regret, or life is yours to miss.
Miss. Okay. Interesting. Nice.
There's like a lot of.
I love quotes.
They're me
so
too.
sick.
Like a lot of song quotes or ones from like musicals and things.
Nice.
What else? There's like a whole bunch. Oh, I guarantee they're gonna come to me after this.
Yeah, just send them my way. I love quotes so much. Like,
what else? There's today is the tomorrow that you worried about yesterday. So that one's a mouthful, but
that's a good one.
well, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because if you like,
I'll do it tomorrow, but then
you got to today, you were super worried about what was to come, but then you got through it and you're fine. I don't know. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of stuff, and a lot of them do come from like musicals and whatever, because that's like I really like watching those. But I actually that's part of why I use social media too. Is I actually go through like quote pages and stuff, and I find things, and that it helps you realize that you're not the only one going through tough times.
True.
Right.
It helps you relate to people.
Yeah, exactly, and even if you don't realize, but someone else has written that quote, so clearly they were going through what you're going through in a way, right? So I have a whole bunch of them. I can literally send
just
you
fire them off
them.
whenever they come up. I'll be like,
to think
okay.
of them right now, like
Nice.
it's usually just a whole bunch, like whatever's in that situation, I'll have something that fits it or whatever.
So how it comes in. Cool.
Yeah, and I think just or even leave. I like this one. Leave people better than you found them.
Leave people better than you found them.
Yeah, that's what I try to
Nice.
live by. That one is. I guess I don't know why it didn't come to me sooner.
I think that's a good quote to end on. So leave people better than when you found them. All right. Well, I definitely feel left better. So, Ali, I appreciate your time very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll let you get that assignment done for Wednesday.
Yep.
So, awesome.